Hi everyone! In this video, I will show you how to register discoveries in Senha Segura to identify devices within your network. We will also cover the steps to set up a scan to discover credentials associated with these same devices. To find this page, go to the Discovery module, then Settings, then Discovery once more. I ran a discovery search prior to recording this video, but if you want to do it yourself, click the New button on the upper right corner. In this case, we will edit this discovery item and go over some important settings. The first thing is to name our device discovery. I knew that I was looking for a Windows 10 device, so I named it after DOS. This next field is incredibly important because it creates a range for your discovery. Since I'm looking for a single device, you will see I use the same IP address for both the initial and final IP. But instead, you may be looking for all devices within a single network. In that case, I could type 1 in this final box, or maybe 2, and ask it to go up to 254 or even 255. If you do that, Senha Segura will look for all devices within your network according to the protocols you will create shortly. We strongly recommend that you only set up ranges up to /24. I will edit it back to my original setup. Done. Now, another important step is to establish which credential will be used. As you know, Senha Segura will use the range at the top to try to connect to any devices or assets within this range. Depending on which devices are found, Senha Segura might scan it. But to do so, it requires a credential. The goal here is to find the credentials and groups associated with the discovered device. Therefore, we need a credential with the right level of privilege. In other words, the access credential is needed to log into the discovered device and scan it for users and groups. And you should thus choose a privileged enough credential to conduct both actions. You can either add a specific credential or create a pool of credentials through PAM, that is, a group of credentials to be used in the authentication process. I won't be doing it this time, so if we move on to the second tab named Searches, you can choose to search for credentials only, though there are other options for you to explore in your scan settings. The plugins are also extremely important. We know we are trying to find devices and scan them for users, groups, and their credentials. But how can we do that? I mean, how can we find Windows and Linux credentials? That's what plugins are for. As you all know, Windows and Linux are operating systems that use different methods to discover users. We should use the plugin to let the system know what is the logic to be applied when discovering the credentials of a given device, but also the port through which to connect and through which Discovery will try to find devices. In this example, I'm looking for a Windows device and should apply the Windows logic to discover credentials through port 5985. but you can choose to use more than one plugin. Let's say your range went from 0.1 to 0.255. And you can't be sure all devices will run on Windows. If a Linux device falls within this range, you wouldn't be able to connect to it anyway because this port will be closed. And even if it is open, the authentication will be unsuccessful. And in the rare cases authentication is successful, the logic won't work. So I will add the Unix plugin. Here's a full list of plugins and I'll choose the Unix and add a port. As you can see here, you can also separate ports by commas. I had chosen the 5985 port, but I can choose the other well-known ports. So 5985 is for Windows RM, but we have 135 for RPC. What now? For each device discovered within this range, Senha Segura will use the Windows plugin, first trying to connect to port 5985, then port 135. If unsuccessful, it will move on to the second plugin, Unix, connecting to port 22. That is why you should carefully consider the perfect range for you. In the Execution tab, we can determine the days and times to scan for these devices. I'll leave the default settings. And in the Import tab, we also have some important things to look at. Here is where you establish whether discovered devices and credentials should be automatically imported. If you're not sure what might be discovered in a given range, keep this option disabled to prevent unauthorized devices to be imported into Senha Segura. But if you know what you're looking for, you can enable this option and use a glossary, as we will see in future videos. I'll leave mine disabled. I save these settings and move on to the next step, run a discovery search. After you have saved the settings, the discovery will automatically be run. You can see I got a message saying it found one device. I can click the button on the right to access the log report. And I can drill into this item using the Action button to find more detailed information about this device and, for example, IP address. But I can also go to Discovery, Devices, to find a list of all devices identified in my discovery search. My report brings only a single device because this is what I was looking for in my discovery. So in my case, the host name is already populated, but that might not be the case in your search. The host name is one of the things returned by the scan alongside the credentials. Since I had previously added a host name to that device, this field is automatically populated. Now we can scan for credentials. By default, after Senha Segura discovers a device, it automatically schedules a scan according to the access credential added to the discovery settings. To find a list of credentials, just go to Credentials under Discovery. Done. In my case, I use a filter so we wouldn't have a long list of identified credentials. I chose the administrator credential because it is an important one. It is listed as a privileged credential associated with the target device found by our Windows 10 discovery. Now I can choose to manually import that device into Senha Segura. All I have to do is check this item and click Import Device. I will be prompted with a message saying that previously imported devices won't be re-imported, but rather updated for newer connectivity settings. Click Yes. My device has now been successfully imported. And only after doing that can I import the administrator credential. You will see that I can no longer check this checkbox and the table lists this device as imported. Now let's manually import the credential. Let me get back to the credentials page. And when I first showed you this page, this option to import this credential to Senha Segura was not even available because the device had not been imported yet. So you should always import the device first, if manually, and then the credentials associated with it. Now, all I have to do is select this credential and click to import. Now you have learned to set up the discovery to find both devices and credentials for Senha Segura. Thank you for watching.